Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Bleeding Burnt Orange Show here on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and the SEC channel, the voice of college football. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel, and I appreciate you guys doing that. I am here with the 34th edition of the Bleeding Burnt Orange Show, and we will get right into it. But before that, can we talk about Ticketsmarter.com? It's a better way to get tickets and to save you money. Go to ticketsmarter.com, type in code BIG for $10 off a purchase of $100 more, and type in code BIG20 for $20 off a purchase of $300 more. It really helps out, Mark. It helps out your wallet, so why not do it? Hit that Go over to ticketsmarter.com, type in those two promo codes of whatever you're spending. If you're going to a really big sporting event, you're probably going to spend $300, so type in code BIG20. And if you're going to something small by yourself, maybe type in code BIG for $10 off a purchase of $100 more. So I really appreciate that, guys. So does Mark. Like I said, subscribe to the new SEC channel, which I will be coming from here Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time in the off season, and then in season, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time Wednesdays, and after the games on Saturdays and one Friday, I will be here as well. Also, guys, I know we moved from that channel, but go over to the Voice of College Football Big 12 channel, hit that like button and subscribe, and let's jump into this, guys. So a crazy story has come out. I didn't really hear about it till yesterday. A Lake Travis product who Texas was recruiting, and I say was because they no longer are, Gus Cardova. The story goes like this. Apparently, one of Cardova's teammates had a peanut allergy, and him and multiple teammates thought it would be funny to put peanuts at one point, and then later on put a peanut granola bar into his locker. And this could have killed the kid. Like if this kid touches it, it could have killed him. This came to the attention of the Texas staff because a bunch of Texas ex-players and a couple Texas current players retweeted the story. They were not fans of this move. So Texas has now backed off this recruitment. My feelings on this are complicated, guys. This is truly a wrong and heinous act, but do I think it should ruin a 17-year-old kid's life? No. I don't think Gus Cardova should no longer be allowed to play football at the collegiate level or get recruited at the collegiate level because he decided to pull a really, really stupid prank. I think there's only two circumstances in which I believe a minor should be judged harshly, and that's murder, and the other one rhymes with grape. I don't think you're allowed to say it on YouTube without getting demonetized, but it rhymes with grape. So I don't understand. I understand why Texas did that. But do I think, again, this should ruin every opportunity he has going forward? Absolutely not. I would love for this kid to get a lower level chance to prove himself on and off the field, and then hopefully transfer to a place like Texas. But I think his opportunity at the big schools that he was being recruited at, Oklahoma, I believe, withdrew their opportunity. Texas has withdrawn their recruiting offer as well. And then you have Texas A&M and Michigan up there as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they all pull their offers at some point because it is a big story. Again, it's hard for me to say that this should ruin the young man's life. It really is, but I understand why Texas did it. I think they had to do it, especially with ex-players and current players retweeting the story. I think the positive part of this is Texas is a very good locker room. Like a bad locker room doesn't really care what recruits are coming in. First off, and then they don't even look into the details like this. This is very, you can tell this is a mature locker room. This is a locker room that cares and a locker room with high quality guys. So I'd way rather have that than the opposite problem. So Steve Sarkisian definitely has us moving in the right direction for that. If any more details do come out about the story, if they decide to re-offer or re-pursue Gus Cardova, we will talk about that as well. I mean, this guy's a 4-star prospect, has a chance to be a high 4-star prospect. And another thing is 247 Sports actually pulled his stars. Like he's a no-star prospect on their website now. I mean, this is a big story. Again, I hope it doesn't ruin his life, but I completely understand why Texas decided to pull the offer. So that is that story, guys. We will talk about the new college football playoff format too. So we are at a 5+7 model, and there's already talks, guys. Pete Thamel, probably the best reporter that we have in college football, talked about potentially going from 12 teams to 14 teams already. Like that's still in the works. That could be, they've agreed on this. it could happen to where they agree on the 14 teams. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, we all know where this is headed. This is going to be a 16-team playoff at some point. I think these next 2 years will be 12, maybe 14 teams, but for sure 12 teams. The 5+7 model is better than the 6+6, so I agree with that. You have the 5 highest ranked conference champions will be in the playoff, with the group of 5 also being included. They'll most likely be ranked 12th every year. Notre Dame, which I think is great, and I haven't heard their fans complain about that, so props to them. But if they go undefeated, they're still going to be at best the 5th seed. Like, the highest rated champions will be in, and that doesn't include Notre Dame. They're not a conference champion, so they wouldn't be in. They would be in, but they'd be the 5th seed. And honestly, guys, I thought about this like 2 or 3 days ago. I think the fifth seed is honestly the second best seed you can have. I think the first seed, obviously everyone wants that, but if you can't get that, I think the 5th seed is the way to go. First off, you get a group or a non-Power 5 team at the 12 slot that you would play, and you get to stay in rhythm. You get 2 weeks off, then you would play. I'd way rather have that than a month off and then play, like the current format was set up. And then you would play the 4th ranked team, which, guys, the 4th ranked team in all reality could be like the 8th or 9th team, because remember, they could be, let's say Clemson goes 10-2 or 9-3 and they're the conference champion. They would probably be the 4th ranked team going in to next year, because the SEC champion and Big Ten champion are going to be 1 and 2 in whatever order. And then 3 and 4 is going to be interesting. But that's why, like, if you're 5th seed, think about that. You play the worst team available in the 12th seed. And then if you win and you play again, you're playing probably the worst conference champion. And then you would play the 1 seed, and you get to stay in rhythm through all of this, and there are no breaks. So I actually would love to be the 5th seed. Like, I've seen Texas ranked as the 5th seed going in to next year, because you would have Georgia most likely being number 1. I think it'd be a fantastic opportunity to be the 5th seed. That would be my if we can't be 1, that's where I'd want to be. So I don't have an issue with that. First round is on campus, obviously, and then again, you have to include the conference or the highest non-Power 5 team, non-Power 4, I guess now, since the Pac-12 doesn't exist. I think that should be done away with, guys, because we have included the best non-group or non-power teams now. Like, SMU is going to be in a conference, UCF's in a conference, BYU's in a conference, Cincinnati's in a conference. Houston's in a conference. I think there's still a couple stragglers out there. Like, I think Boise State can recruit at a high enough level where in the future maybe they could win a game. But Liberty's never winning a game. They don't recruit at that level. They never will. Some of the other teams thrown out there, App State, I don't see ever recruiting at that level. I think Boise State's really the last straggler. Like, if they are one of those teams, and I don't know if they include Oregon State and Washington State into this. If they included them, then those 3 teams possibly could get in the playoff and win a game because they recruit at a high enough level, have good enough facilities. But everyone else, Liberty's not winning a game. App State's not winning a game. Army, if they get in, isn't winning a game. So I just disagree with it. I think they should do away with that. If you want to try it out, I guess, for these first 2 years, because I think these first 2 years, honestly, guys, this is an experiment. And then the SEC and Big Ten will control the ways this thing goes moving forward. If they like it, then we'll stay with here and maybe expand to 16 with the same type of formula. If they don't, then we'll move away from it. But it's definitely a new world in college football, and it's going to be very, very interesting, guys. And we'll see what happens with the whole thing going forward. I think it's going to be a fun time for college football, but it's also going to be a trying time for the fans. I think we're just going to have to get used to kind of just being in the middle here. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if this is going to be a positive thing for the sport, a negative thing for the sport. It's going to be very interesting moving forward. And we will talk about moving forward in this next segment. Guys, again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. So this is a Texas channel, but Texas is going to the SEC, and I looked at our SEC schedule a couple weeks ago, broke it down. I have us at 10-2, and the over-unders came out. So what I wanted to do was go and pull a couple teams from the Texas schedule and see what their over-unders were, and what I expect them to be. We will take a deep dive into their schedule and see how good I expect these teams to be. First up, guys, we're going to go with Mississippi State, and we'll jump into your comments real quick. Should conference championship games be terminated? Bean, I fully expect that to happen at some point, and that is my nephew. He jumped on screen. But I fully expect that to happen at some point. I think when we get to 16 teams, you will see conference championships go by the wayside. I don't see that at this point. I think 12 teams, we stay with conference championship games. So let's go to this again. Mississippi State over under. I will share my screen now, and let's see. Share screen. Mississippi State. Make sure you guys can see that. Let's go here. Share. Close this out just to make sure you guys. Okay, you guys can see that. Great. So Mississippi State's schedule heading into the season next year. So, guys, Mississippi State, they went 5-7 last year. They bring in Jeff Lebby as the head coach. Us Texas fans know him. Running the offense at Oklahoma. They're 16th in returning production in the SEC. They are dead last. Guys, when I saw 4.5, I was thinking maybe they can go over, but then you bring in a new coach. You bring in a new quarterback. Your schedule gets harder. And guys, remember, Mark talks about this every year for the last decade. You've had 5 teams per conference go up 3 wins or go down 3 wins. You got to find 4 to 6 teams in the SEC are going to win 3 more games than they did last year, and then other teams are going to, or there's going to be a couple other teams that lose 3 or more games. Looking at that, if you're going by that formula, will Mississippi State go 8 wins next year? Absolutely not. There's a way better chance this team wins 2 games. I don't know if they will. We'll jump into the schedule and see. So Eastern Kentucky, I fully expect them to beat. So that is 1 win. Arizona State. Arizona State is one of those games at Arizona State. I think that's a toss-up game. I'm going to give them a loss there, so they're sitting at 1-1. They play Toledo at home. Toledo can beat them. Toledo's one of the best teams in the MAC. I fully expect this Mississippi State team to struggle. I'm going to say they lose that game. I'm going 1-2 to start off the season. Then they play Florida at home. And actually, I'm going to break this down. The first 4 games, I'm going to say 2-2 because I think they could lose to Florida or Toledo. I don't think they lose to both. I think they lose to one of those teams. So let's say 2-2 through 4 games. So they're halfway through, or they need 3 more wins to reach the over mark. At Texas, they are not winning this game. I have this as a win. I think Texas destroys them. It's the first first SEC game for Texas, and it's at home. I think Texas wins this game rather easily. You get a bye week, and then you run into at Georgia. At Texas, at Georgia is a tough stretch. You lose that game too, so you're 2-4, and you head back to Mississippi with a 2-4 record versus Texas A&M. I'm going to go a loss there, so you're looking at, 2-5. You come back the next week at home, and you play Arkansas. I'm going to give you a win. So you're looking at 3-5, playing UMass. You win that game. You're 4-5. At Tennessee, you're not winning. 5-6. 4-6 basically. At Missouri, 4-7, and Missouri at home. Don't care. 4-7, and then at Ole Miss. So that puts you at 4-8. And they could get to 5, but Vegas knows what they're doing. That's why I said at 4.5, but I'm looking at 4 wins right there. Could they get to 5? Yeah. There's no chance this is a team that gets to 8 wins, so they're not going to meet that criteria of meeting the 8 wins of +3. Could they win 2 games in an absolutely abysmal, terrible, worst scenario? I could see 2, but I just don't. I think this team wins 4 games. I think they're 4-8 in the next year. That's my opinion on Mississippi State. Let's see what you guys think. Mississippi State is terrible. I see no chance they win 5 games. That is very possible, DeReal. I agree. I think they're going to be terrible. I'm going to have them at 4-8. For right now, from what I know, we'll dive into this deeper as the offseason goes in, probably July, I'm thinking, to dive really far deep into these teams and get to know them better. But just right off the bat, I think this is a 4-8 team, and I don't think they fit in that criteria of -3 or +3. They're not winning 8 games. That's not happening. So if you ask me if they are one of the +3 or -3 teams and you had to say they're going to be one of them, which way are you going? I'm going -3. They're going to win 2 games next year if that's possible. That's where I would go. Next up, guys, we're going to go to the Oklahoma Sooners, and I'm actually going to have to look up this schedule real quick because I did not have it pulled up. Oklahoma 2024 schedule. I know I talked to Mark about this. I do think Oklahoma is going to struggle next year. They are 9th in returning production, and the problem I see with Oklahoma is they lose their quarterback, offensive play caller, and most of their offensive line. I actually think their defense next year, which did struggle, will get better. I think it'll be an average defense, but there's a real chance this this offense is like one of the worst in the SEC. I know Jackson Arnold's talented, and I like some of the other pieces. Nick Anderson at wide receiver is a good piece, but I just don't see them having a great year. I will share my screen again with you guys so we can check out the Oklahoma schedule. Okay, it should be on your guys' screen, and it is. So they're the only ones to include their spring game, which I find weird. But they have their spring game the same day as Texas. So they can't lose that game. Let's go into Temple. They should win that game. They should absolutely win that game. If they don't win that game, they have issues. I believe Stan Drayton, the old running back coach from Texas, is still there. Like I said, Oklahoma, 9th in returning production in the SEC. So honestly, a little bit higher than they thought. They're right in the middle of the pack in the SEC. They went 10-2 last year, but again, that was in the Big 12 with a couple really close games, and their over-under is at 7.5. I'm going to give them a win off the bat versus Temple. I think that's one down. Houston. So I like the hire of Willie Fritz. They lose a lot of good pieces. If this game was at Houston, I think Houston could potentially win this game. They're not winning this game. That's 2-0. Tulane, again, it kind of works out. So you're playing Houston has Tulane's old coach. So Tulane has a new coach. Houston has a new coach. All this turmoil between both programs. Michael Pratt is no longer there. I think you start out 3-0. I really do. Is there a possibility of 2-1? Yes. And if that happens, they're going under. They're only going to win 7 games if that happens. Then they play Tennessee at home. Could they win that game? Yes, they could. I'm going to give them so I'm just going to break this down because I think it makes it easier, honestly. First 5 games, I think they're 4-1. I could see them losing at max 2 of these games. I think they're 3-2 at worst, 4-1 at best. I'm going to give them 4-1. I think they split somewhere between Tennessee and Auburn. I think Auburn's going to be very good next year, so I could 100% see them losing to Auburn and beating Tennessee. So I'm going to go with a loss between those two. I don't know which one. Let's go 4-1 to start out this first half of the schedule. And then Texas, they're losing this game. I think the last 20 years, a first time starting quarterback is something like 4-16 in this game. Jackson Arnold, his first start. I think they're going to lose. So they're at 4-2 to start out the year, and they come back to Norman, and they're going to play South Carolina. I think they beat South Carolina. So right there, they're 5-2. And you're thinking, oh, this is pretty good. Then you see the end of the schedule. At Ole Miss, they're not winning that game. They're 5-3. They beat Maine. They're 6-3. Now, this is where it gets hard. You're 6-3 with 3 very hard games to end the season. At Missouri, which I think is going to surprise a lot of people. They bring a lot back. They also have a very easy SEC schedule in comparative to the rest of the conference. Then you have a bye week, and you go Alabama at LSU. So you're 6-3. So if you go 2-1 during this stretch, you win 8 games. If you go 1-2, you win 7 games. Guys, I think this team fits into the rule. I think they go under the 7.5. I think they go 7-5. I think they go 1-2. They win 7 games. And I think they fit in that rule. They went 10-2 last year. I think they're going to win 7 games. So that's one team down in the SEC that fits that rule. There's no possibility because they'd have to goes undefeated. There's none. Oklahoma's not going undefeated versus schedule. And I think at best they win 8, so they still wouldn't fit in the rule at that point. I'm going to go with they will fit the rule because it kind of makes sense. So that's why I think they go under the 7.5, and I think they fit the rule of +3 or -3. They're going to be -3 next year. So that's one of the teams in the SEC. I got to find 4 more that will go either +3 or -3. I think Oklahoma goes -3. I think they go 7-5. Hey, Matthew, I still can't believe Florida is 4.5. Easiest under. They're 5.5, Will. Florida is 5.5. I have them actually next, so we'll get into that, but they are 5.5. Mississippi State. Okay, I already said that. I sense a little bit of bias when predicting the loss to Texas. LOL. Yeah, I mean, you want to go with bias, that's fine. But I just find it hard to believe that we're going to lose to an Oklahoma team that is less talented than us back-to-back years with a new starting cornerback, with a basically whole new offensive line. I just don't see that happening. And yeah, we will get into Florida. We will actually get into them right now. Again, I'll have to type them in because they are not on the Oklahoma schedule. And I will share that with you guys as soon as I pull it up. But I agree, Will. If I had a bunch of money to bet on one thing going into college football next year, it's the under on Florida, and you will see why when we get to the schedule. First off, they're 4th in returning production, which is good, but you're returning it from a 5-7 team. Think about that, guys. This is basically going to be the same team with a harder schedule, and Vegas is going to say they have to win one more game than last year. There is no way that is happening, and I will share that with you and show you why that is not going to happen, because it's insane to expect this team to win 6 games. If this team wins 6 games, guys, Billy Napier should get an extension. Mark and I talked about this. Like, if he wins 6 games with the schedule, he should get an extension. This is a very hard schedule. There's no team in the country that would go undefeated versus this schedule. I think if Georgia got the schedule, Ohio State and Texas, which I think are the 3 best teams, any way you put them, I think they're at best 10-2 in this schedule, all 3 of them. I think they both lose, all 3 of them lose multiple games versus this schedule. It's a very hard game. So you start out with Miami, and we're just going to break this down. First 4 games, they're going to win versus Samford. That's their only guaranteed win. I have them beating Mississippi State, so they're 2-2. Or no, I didn't decide on that if they're going to beat Mississippi State. I just said Mississippi State would go 4-1 in their first 5. This is hard. I'm going to say Florida goes 2-2 in their first 4 games. I think that is perfectly fair. I think that is the average. If they played this schedule 1,000 times, what would happen? Could they go 3-1? Yes. Do I think they will? No. If they go 4-0, they're going to go over this number. I don't think that's going to happen. So they're 2-2 with a bye week. They play UCF at home. I think they win that game. They're 3-2. At Tennessee, I think they lose. They're 3-3. Kentucky, let's give them a win. They're 4-3 heading into a bye week. They're second of the season. And then this is where you get the gauntlet. You play Georgia at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss at Florida State. So let me remind myself what I have. I have them at what? 2-2, 3-2, 4-3. And you end with that 5-game schedule. So they would have to go 2-3 to hit 6 wins. Guys, they're not going 2-3 versus that schedule. They're not going to beat Georgia. That's 4-4. They're not beating Texas, 4-5. They could beat LSU or Ole Miss. Let's give them a win and then a loss. So they're 5-6. So a chance to go 6-6 at Florida State. I'm going to go a loss. I think they go 5-7. Their win total's 5.5. At best, guys, they win 6 games. At best. And again, going back to that scenario of +3 wins, +3 losses, I'm going to have to find 5 teams. I found one already in Oklahoma. Could Florida go 2-10? Yes, but it's hard for me to believe that because Samford's an automatic win. They're not going to lose that game. So that's 1 win. They would only have to win 1 more game the rest of the year. I think they're good enough to win, just talent alone, to win 2 more games on the schedule. I think if you can beat Mississippi State, that's 2 wins, and then UCF or Texas A&M, like there's a possibility of 6. It's really hard for me to believe they only win 2 games. If they win 2 games, Billy Napier probably is fired by the Texas game, honestly. Might be fired by the Georgia game. They could fire him in that off week. I think if they are really bad and only end up winning 2 games, he'll be fired on Saturday that week of Saturday, October 26th, before the Georgia game. I think that's what happens. I'm not going to give them a -3 or +3. I think they're just going to go 5-7 again. That's what I think. I think they'll be 5-7 again, which still honestly isn't that bad with the schedule, and it's the under. So I'd bet the under on this, and I think I'm being kind. I think they could easily win 3 or 4 games. I think 4 is honestly the most likely. I'm going to give them 5 though. Let's see what anyone has to say about that. B Bean, 4 Gator wins max. Yeah, I could see that. I think 4 is honestly, like, if you simulated this schedule 1,000 times, I think 4 is probably the average. I think 4 is the average. I think someone came out with SEC predictions yesterday and said 2-10. If that happens, then they would meet that criteria of a -3. I just don't see that happening. If they go I could never imagine a scenario, even with that schedule, of Florida going 2-10, just because of the talent and returning production they have. Like, they have enough talent. They're still like an average talented SEC team, even with what Billy Napier's done of a mismanagement and what Dan Mullen honestly did of a mismanagement of that roster. So I think they win 5 games. I think they're 5-7. I would bet the under. Just to recap real quick before we go into the last one. And Darrell, I don't know if you're still here. I'm going to go to Kentucky for the last one. Before we do that, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. And then Mississippi State, I predicted The under or the over of 4.5. I think they win 5 games. Oklahoma, I went under at 7.5. I think they'll win 7. And Florida at 5.5. I think they'll go 5 and 7, and that'll be the under. Let's check out the Kentucky Wildcats, and we can just do this. This is nice. I don't have to stop sharing with you guys. So Kentucky last year 7-5, 13th in returning production. That does scare me, guys. 13th in the SEC in returning production. The second worst on this list so far, Mississippi State was 16th. They are dead last. Kentucky at the bottom. They do bring in Brock Vandergrift, and I think it's it's very similar to last year with Devin Leary. If Devin Leary had hit and played to his upper echelon potential like he did at North Carolina State, I think you could see Kentucky take off and win 8 or 9 games. So if Brock Vandergrift can do that, they might be able to win 8 or 9 games. They went 7-5 last year, over-under set at 6.5. They bring back a really talented wide receiver in Barry and Brown. They lose Ray Davis, and they lose Andrew Phillips at cornerback, one of their best cornerbacks. So it's going to be interesting. I had Mark Stoops ranked as the 7th best coach in the SEC. When I predicted the Texas schedule, I had Kentucky beating Texas. I think Texas is going to lose a game they're not supposed to, and I think Kentucky fits the bill of a really well-coached football team with enough talent to jump up and beat Texas if they play their C game. So that's what I have. 6.5, guys. Let's jump into it. South Carolina, at home, I think you win that game. Georgia, at home, I think you lose that game. Ohio, at home, I think you win that game. Ole Miss, on the road, you lose. So you're 2-2 through your you are 3-2 through your first 5 games. I didn't even say Southern Miss. They'll beat them at home. So you're 3-2. You only need 7. Bye week, Vanderbilt, 4-2. Let's break this down. So you're at 4-2. You play Florida, Auburn, and Tennessee. Can you go 2-1 versus that? Yes. In fact, that's what I'm going to predict. I'm going to predict 2-1. So you're 6-2 going into your second bye week. 7-2 for versus. Am I missing a game? Am I miscounting here? I think I am. That's 5, 3-2, 4-2, 5-2, 6-2. So you're 6-3 going into your second bye. So you need to win 2 games of the next 3 to go over the 6. Or no, actually, you're 6-3. You need to win 1. I think this is an easy over. I think Kentucky wins 7 games. 6.5, I'm betting the over. I think Kentucky easily wins 7 games. In fact, because I predicted them to beat Texas, I don't think they go 3-0 at the back end. I think you beat Murray State. I think you beat Texas, and I think you lose to Louisville. I have Kentucky at 8-4. That is a little high, realistically. 7-5, guys. +3 or -3. Is Kentucky going to win 10 games? Not versus schedule, no. Is Kentucky only going to win 4 games? Again, if I had to bet 4 or 10, I'm betting 4. Do I think that's going to happen? No. I think they win 7 games, and I would bet the over. So I have Kentucky over, I have Florida under, I have Oklahoma under, and I have Mississippi State over. The only one that fits the criteria, +3 or -3, is Oklahoma. They went 10-2 last year. I think they only win 7 games. I think Kentucky goes 8-4 versus schedule. Like I said, they could lose to Texas and still go 7-5. So I'm probably a little bit higher on Kentucky than most people, but I just believe in Mark Stoops. I believe that Brock Vandergrift is going to play well at Kentucky, and it's just hard for me to imagine they only win like 5 or 6 games. I could see, like I said, I could see 6, but that's like the floor for me, 6-6. I think they're a 6-6, 7-5 team. I'm going to bet that they're more in the 7-5, 8-4 range because I have them beating Texas. Let me make this clear. I am at 8-4. If you don't have them beating Texas, I think they're 7-5. So I think they go over the 6.5. And that is the last schedule I will do for today. But I think there's a chance they might have an open slot for FCS goal. No, I just read it wrong, Will. That was my bad. So again, guys, Mississippi State 4.5. I have the over. Oklahoma 10 or did I? Actually, I don't. I'm going to be straight up. I don't even remember what I had for Mississippi State. I'm doing this all on the fly. 4.5. I believe I had the over, or no, I had the under for Mississippi State 4.5. I had them at 4. Oklahoma 7.5. I went under with 7. Florida 5.5. I went under with 5. Kentucky I went over at 6.5. I think they'll win 7. The only team that meets the criteria of +3 or -3, which about 25 to 30 teams do in the big power conferences every year. So you have 5, maybe 6 per conference. I have Oklahoma. I have Oklahoma -3 on there, so they meet that criteria. I have to find four more teams out of the next 12 teams that meet that criteria. If I had to bet of another team on here that meets that criteria, it would probably be, man, that's hard. I don't think it's Florida. I don't think they lose 2 games or win 2 games. I don't think they win 8 games. I think it's probably Mississippi State. I could see Mississippi State only winning 2 games. So that would be my next one if I had to guess. But again, I have them winning 4. So, I mean, 4-2 is not that big of a jump. Again, guys, I am here every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. This was an SEC over-unders. We'll do this again next week. We'll also talk a little bit more Texas. I'll do another 4 teams. We'll just do this for 4 weeks in a row, do 4 teams each. We'll end with Texas, even though I do have them at under right now of 10.5 wins. I am at 10-2. Again, this is early. I'll redo this very in-depth, probably July. And those will be my final ones. This is just straight off the bat, what I've read, the little bit that I have, and returning production and stuff like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe down below. I will be here next Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time for the 35th edition of the Bleeding Burnt Orange show here on Mark Rogers TV. Hit that like button, subscribe down below. Hook 'em, guys.